This is the Ag Queen Podcast. This podcast explores the agriculture industry with the movers and shakers of those shaping it. Here's your host, Lori Boyer.
Welcome to our Daily Ag Newsmaker interview here today. I'm Lori Boyer. Tom Wojno is my guest here today. He is the Chief Operating Officer for the International Dairy Foods Association. From your vantage point, what is changing in the business of dairy? You just said everything looks bright and you're hiring. So tell me some more about those changes you're seeing right now.
No, absolutely. Well, I tell you, it is June Dairy Month, but every day, every week, and every month here at IDFA is Dairy Month. I think it's been a really interesting shift. I'll be 9 years at IDFA in November, so I can almost speak to the decade here. But I think we are seeing a huge shift in the last decade. Dairy is certainly having its moment in the sun. We have really shifted the focus of this industry and the evolution of this industry from, that traditional, maybe even commoditized category to one that is now ripe with growth, driven by, nutrition, value, convenience, innovation, and global demand. And I think our member companies and the industry more broadly across the supply chain, we're seeing investment that is really driving all of this forward, from increased processing capacity to modernization. I think there is this ongoing sense of confidence and optimism to see where this industry is going. And I think the investment is not only following, but really leading. We're seeing $13 billion of investment and counting recently. We are now the largest category in retail. Dairy represents $80 billion in sales, the largest in food retail sales. And we are almost approaching $10 billion in annual exports. So, I think the last decade is one that I would say captures confidence and optimism and growth across all categories. And I'm sure we'll get into what those are and what those mean. But it is an optimistic time to be in dairy and an exciting time to be in dairy.
And what about prices? How are those holding up right now?
I think there are some volatile markets and some influxes. I think we are seeing a lot. We're hearing a lot about planning and flexibility, right? How do we manage those investments with the short-term volatility in the markets we're seeing across the board, whether it's tightening in supply, tightening in prices. Maybe we're high on cream. Butter prices are low, but I think there's a lot of different forces at play. So I would say flexibility is the key word. We're also seeing, change in consumer demand, change in packaging sizes. We can talk about GLP-1s all day, but I think that is also a driver of innovation for our category, serving sizes, nutritional content for our category, and how do we really keep up and shift with the ongoing consumer demand?
Now, I am curious. I want to ask a follow-up on that. You mentioned a GLP-1. So how does that correlate to what's going on with the dairy trends?
Listen, I think GLP-1s, they have hit all food and beverage like a 10-ton truck, right? The uptake of GLP-1s, depending on the source you're looking at, somewhere between 9 and 13% of consumers today are on a GLP-1. I think it's probably closer to 9 right now. Maybe it'll be 13 to 15 by, say, 2030. There's also this faction of consumers that are curious about GLP-1s. I think there's another wave of GLP-1 users with the introduction of oral GLP-1s that could take that 13% number up to 30. When you get those some of us may be a little gun shy as it comes to sticking ourselves with a needle, but in an oral form, I think you could have a whole new wave of consumers that would be interested in the GLP-1 market. And so what does that mean for our businesses? I think that means that we are going to have to continue to focus on providing protein-rich, nutrient-dense product in a variety of formats. I think that will mean a lot for the future of our planning, of our product innovation, in our packaging innovation, to make sure that we continue to meet that ongoing consumer demand and keep up with where those trends are headed.
Well, as you're working with companies across the industry, what are you hearing from them right now?
We are being very thoughtful about investment. We talked about a lot of those different forces at play, and we want to make sure that we're balancing, the short-term variability in the marketplace right now with that long-term opportunity and growth mindset, and that focus on long-term value for our consumer, for the long-term value for the businesses that support our wonderful dairy industry, and on the long-term value creation for all of those supply chain partners, from farmers all the way down up through our transportation partners. So I think flexibility is a huge theme. I think sustainability and efficiency are huge, really, really big themes within our member companies. We continue to produce more dairy with fewer resources. We improve our efficiency, our sustainability, our input usage. And I think the more focus on those types of investments that can really enable efficiencies within our processing facilities, within our supply chain, and within our global markets is a huge, huge focus for our industry right now.
All right. And then as far as that goes, what would you say, Tom, feels different in terms of planning and operating as you're working with these companies?
Yeah, I do think, no day, week, month are the same, right? And I think we are dealing with a lot of variability, both from consumer demand, from policy headwinds, regulatory headwinds. I think there are sizable shifts that our member companies and that we as IDFA are seeing. What used to be a predominantly DC focused, federally focused model of advocacy that really enabled our members to do what they do best, and that's develop and make highly nutritious, affordable products for the American public. We're seeing a lot of this policy conversation move from federal to state. And when it does that, we see it move a whole lot faster. Things that might take weeks or months or maybe even years in Washington to move, we're seeing happen in days and hours and maybe weeks if we're lucky at the state level. And so as that landscape evolves, our members are evolving with it. IDFA is evolving with it. We're expanding our government affairs team to really meet the needs of our members at those state levels. So we have hired a new head of our state government affairs team. We have actually developed a state defense fund so that IDFA and our members, on behalf of the industry, can really engage in these state and local issues that matter the most. Think about feeding programs and nutrition programs like school meals and WIC or SNAP waivers. These are things, or colors and additives. These are things that are moving very fast state to state. And so not only have we kind of restructured and re-engineered our team to meet those needs, but we're also developed a defense fund that when we need to, we can be nimble and engage in state issues that matter the most to our members and put our resources at those battles that happen very quickly and support our members at the state and local level.
What about the opportunity, whether it's certain products, categories, and markets? I mean, we just talked a little bit about the GLP ones here a little bit ago. What are some other opportunities that you're seeing?
I think the opportunity is really centered upon three things with today's consumer. I think today's consumer is looking at nutrition. I think they're looking at convenience. And most importantly, I think they're looking at value. I think dairy has all of the opportunity here. I think we are squarely in, we can check the box of all three. I think we are front and center with the American consumer right now because we have the ability to provide nutrient dense, healthy, convenient format, and we still tend to be a value product for the American consumer. I'd also say one other thing here, Lori. I think there's also opportunity as we see demand internationally that the U.S. dairy system and our dairy system more broadly can continue to grow across a range of markets. And I think there's an opportunity to increase our exports and develop products specifically for new markets, and maybe not just have an export mentality where we export excess product, but we're really thinking about in a new approach to develop new opportunities within new markets, and maybe one day develop new product portfolios that meet the needs internationally as well.
Can I ask you to give me an example or two of what that might be, or something maybe coming up down the pike?
Yeah, and I always love giving our team a fantastic opportunity, but I would also encourage you to talk with Becky Rasdale, our head of international. But we just launched an opportunity. I'll use the international side here as the example. We just launched Project Diversify. So we see strong demand for dairy protein and ingredients worldwide. I think we can all agree on that. But we also see that there's an opportunity to expand into these new markets and really diversify our exports and our export strategy. So what is IDFA's role in all of this? We developed Project Diversify as a data-backed initiative to take a number of inputs, distill highly complicated information, and make it actionable. So we took a number of different inputs as we look at different export markets, and we think that our new tool has the ability to equip exporters with actionable insights and tools that can really support their own strategic decision making and develop a more resilient global expansion strategy. So we have the inaugural report. It focuses on Western Africa. And then I don't want to bury the lead. We have a second report in this series, which will be slated for release in the coming weeks. I will hold that. Stay tuned, more to come. But I think this tool will really equip our members with some actionable insights about.
Let's switch and just talk a little bit more about policy and how that makes a difference for the dairy industry right now.
Sure. I think we talked a lot about the shift to state and local. I agree. Policy is playing a critical role in how do we maintain and expand demand. I would say especially through the nutrition programs that we're seeing, like school meals and like WIC. We see IDFA's role as the reinforcement of that constant drumbeat to reinforce dairy and our role as a core food in a nutrient-dense, healthy diet. So maintaining our position in the dietary guidelines, increasing our presence in feeding programs. Like the Project Diversify, we see a role for IDFA on the policy stage globally, making sure that global trade and export remains essential and that we've got market access and an ability to compete. I think U.S. dairy is very well positioned to meet the growing demand across the world. And so I think as that landscape evolves, it is incumbent on IDFA to hit all of those lanes, state and local, federal, and international. And we have structured a best-in-class team to do that. I get the privilege every day to work with just fantastic subject matter experts across all of our different verticals. And I see the difference that our teams are making for dairy and for our member companies' businesses.
Well, it also, when we talk about ag policy, can't not talk about the Farm Bill, but now we've got a little bit of movement going on in the Farm Bill. So just a little bit of reaction on what you've seen so far with the Senate's version of the Farm Bill coming out.
Well, I think there's some palpable excitement. The movement is always good. I'd encourage, I think, as we talk about IDFA's series, I don't want to steal any thunder from our newly minted head of government affairs, Chelsea Keys. I think she is uniquely positioned, given her experience in the Senate Ag Committee and now part of IDFA, to really react to that. But I would say the excitement is palpable. I think we're moving on a few margin issues here that we're still hopeful for. But I think there is cautious optimism moving forward.
All right. We are almost out of time here today. What is one thing folks across the dairy industry should be keeping an eye on here as we continue on with 2026? And I would imagine Farm Bill is one of those.
I think Farm Bill is certainly one of those. But I wanted to, we started with the message of optimism, and maybe I'll close with the same. I think dairy is in a very strong position, be it from a policy standpoint, from a consumer demand standpoint, from an international standpoint. We are in a very strong position with a lot of potential and a lot of optimism for future growth and success. I would leave you with, it is June Dairy Month. I said every day is Dairy Month here at IDFA. We have a fantastic campaign right now to really encapsulate and crystallize all the optimism. It's one thing for Tom Wojno at IDFA to talk about the optimism that I have and we have for the dairy industry. But we've got some firsthand fresh videos that we've worked with our member companies on that I really think highlight the power of dairy. So I encourage all of your listeners to go to idfa.org/Dairy Powers America. We are driving opportunity. We are strengthening the communities that we live and work in, and we are supporting the healthy lives of today's generation and future generations to come. So go to idfa.org, Dairy Powers America, and hear more from our member companies and their teammates and family that are really happy to support this great industry every single day.
Thank you to my guest here today, Tom Wojno, Chief Operating Officer for the International Dairy Foods Association. I'm Lori Boyer.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Ag Queen Podcast with your host, Lori Boyer.